We'll call to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, August 13th, 2013. I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the point in the meeting where members of the audience may address the board for up to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board this evening? Okay. Superintendent Gray.
All right, a couple of quick updates. One on enrollment. Overall, we're seeing positive enrollment signs. We're looking, currently we have 348 kindergartners enrolled. Back in June, our target really was around 330, so we've exceeded that. And with the typical August, we think we could push to the 375 student mark for kindergarten, so that would be a very positive thing. And in general, again, anecdotally, we feel like our residential population growth is stabilized and increasing. So it'll be interesting to see where we end up when all is said and done. But it's, again, largely positive signs from enrollment. A few of you I know are playing in it, but this Friday is our special education golf outing. They are full with golfers, so I appreciate all the support that's been given to the special ed department. They use the funds generated for technology and before and after programs for students with disabilities, so it's pretty exciting. I'd also like to specifically give a special thanks to Faurecia, who is a major sponsor this year, and in addition has sponsored 7 teams of golfers, so again, I appreciate their support as a corporate partner. Also to note, the Utterly Ridiculous event is coming up for those of you who are looking for something to do on Wednesday, the 28th of August. The Battle at the Barnyard begins at the fair at 7 p.m. And we're pretty excited about this opportunity for different departments and teams to enter into kind of an Ag Olympics type event, and we get to see who pulls out ahead. So looking forward to that on Wednesday, the 28th at the fair. And then welcome back next Tuesday, 2 weeks from today. Tuesday the 27th at 8 a.m. we'll be having our annual Welcome Back event at the Ellen Ewing Performing Arts Center at the high school. So really all staff are back in 2 weeks, and it's that time of year where we're getting ready to kick off the 2013-2014 school year. And that's, I do have one other, Karen Daly cannot be here tonight. I do want to pass around, she was at the Foundation for Saline School meeting this morning, and their balance sheet, but not only for the end of the fiscal year or end of July 31st report, but also their December 31st report, so you get a sense of where they're at financially, so I'll pass that around.
Okay. Thank you. Are there members of the board who wish to speak at this point?
I would like to thank everyone, the administration, National Honor Society of Kids. We had some crew people all helped out at Summerfest this past weekend, and we always appreciate their help.
Okay, we'll move along. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed. So moved. Support. And Todd. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Scheduled reports. Superintendent Gray.
All right, I would like to call to the podium Principal Helber to be started. We have an opportunity to honor a longtime Saline area school educator, Ms. Norma Freeman, and I'll let Principal Helber take over.
Well, first I'd like to thank everybody for coming on behalf of Norma Freeman, the students, parents, and community members that all came out tonight to celebrate her retirement, although I know that most of us are very sad to see her go. We're very happy to see her take on this next phase of her life. I've gotten to know Norma over the last year, and it's been just a great pleasure to get to know you. Her upbeat personality with the students in the classroom just can't be beat. I mean, I would go in there just to hear the voices and the music, and she was always delighted to see me come in. The other thing that always impressed me is the energy that she has. She's spent the last 19 years in the Saline Area School District, but has been in other districts as well, but brought just all of her energy and everything to this position for Saline area schools that we could have ever asked. I believe she has 91 state competition first place awards for vocal competition at the state level. 91 awards hanging on her wall that she's helped bring to Saline High School. Not only that, if you've ever gone to one of the performances, you definitely would have noticed Mrs. Freeman. One of my favorite memories, and I don't have so many because I've only spent a year, but I know when I first came to some of the concerts, I noticed her immediately because she was just so full of energy. And then my assistant principal, Marie Schluter, said, did you see Mrs. Freeman at the concert? So, it was something that we talked about. But at graduation, when I could see her down and just really dig in deep for them to pull out their voices and collaborate with the orchestra, it was just one of the best moments. And I'm so glad it was caught on video tape that day because we can relive it and watch it over and over again if we'd like to. But she just brings such energy and joy to the position. Her students are so happy when they're with her and when they're singing and when they're in the choir room. And it's very evident if you ever were to walk in there. And just that tone and that environment that you set in there and the encouragement and enthusiasm you bring to this position will definitely be hard to fill. So we will miss you dreadfully, but we're very happy for you to take on this next phase in your life and want to congratulate you for all the many years that you served Saline High School, Saline area schools, and all of the many students that you've touched over the course of this time. We do have a parent, Miss Linda Konzelman, who'd like to say a few words as well. Linda.
Well, Norma, I said I wasn't going to say anything, and I don't really have prepared remarks, but I just want to thank you so much for all that you have brought to my children. 3 of them have had opportunity to participate, to inquire, and one did a summer guitar program, and he loved it and just was very, Norma's enthusiasm is absolutely contagious. So it has been a delight, and what I want to thank you for, besides that you touched my children, is the opportunity that you brought to the community by bringing such good music for people to come and listen to. And I think it's just a shame that more people who aren't affiliated with the school, by having children in the school program, more people don't realize what a treasure the choirs are to this community, and just the caliber of music that you have been able to share with the students and the community is just, it's really unmatched. And we thank you so much, and we're going to miss you very much. Yeah. So, but I hope you won't be a stranger. I hope you'll come back a lot. And yeah.
We also have some students that would like to give present something to Mrs. Freeman today. So this is Isabella and Natalie and Mary.
So when we heard that Mrs. Freeman was retiring, we wanted to take the time to make something that she would always have. So we talked to a bunch of her former students and students from these past few years, and we made her a scrapbook full of letters and pictures that she can have and she can read and laugh about too. And so we hope you love it, and I don't know if you guys want to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's really our way to attempt to say thank you for all of the time and just nurturing care that you put in and given us as students. I mean, it's really not something that we can thank you properly for, but we hope this does some justice to it.
Yeah, and I think the key word there was attempt, because just trying to emote everything that you've done for us. Sorry. Seriously, you've changed our lives. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I was all right until today. Do I need this in this room? Or no? Yes? No? Maybe? Yes. Well, I was all right until this evening, and I just want to one more time thank the Saline community and the Board of Education for giving me the opportunity to teach in this wonderful community. I feel a little bit like a cat with 9 lives. You know, I came here really as an old person. I came here with 21 years of experience, and most people are done with their teaching career with that many years, right? And I have you to thank for allowing me to start over in your lovely community. And I also have the United States Congress to thank, because it was because of them for killing that superconducting supercollider project that brought Ken and I here from Colorado, right? So next time you think maybe not very nicely about Congress, think, well, there's one nice thing they did. They gave to Michigan. So I just want to tell you real quickly what a joy it is to teach in this community, and to let you know what a joy it is to teach choral music. Like my instrumental colleagues in the back, we get to share the melodies and the rhythms with our students, but we get to do one thing further. We get to put the text or the words with music. And whether those words are poetry by Robert Frost or Langston Hughes or Shakespeare, or they might be words, as we did this year, right, in Mongolian or Indonesian or French, German, Latin, Russian, Italian, of all the languages we have sung over the years. One thing that music does is singing does unite people, and more than that, it honors cultures all around the world. And one thing I hope we've done is we've helped the students of Saline honor all of the people of the world through what we've done with all of our singing. And that I think we have. And when I hear them talk about what they know about the world, and when they've come back, and you who are here who have graduated and told me how you feel about music and how you feel about yourself as you go out into the world. Singing is a great thing. Keep it in your lives, and don't you come and ever say to me, oh, I can't sing, because everyone can. And isn't it right, everybody? What a great way it is to start a day with a song. So on that note, no pun intended, I'm going to leave you with one more little present. This is a little CD of our 10 tones this year when we sang in Kalamazoo at the Michigan Youth Arts Festival. They were glorious. They brought down the house, didn't they, moms that were there? They really did. And there's 2 more pieces on here, the 2 pieces from Chamber Choir this year. One of them is a Baroque piece by Handel, and one of them is Indonesian. And we do like to honor the music of all cultures. So we love singing the pop music and the fun music, but remember too that it's great to honor the people of the world through music. Thank you for a wonderful tenure in the Saline schools, and good luck in the future.
Students or former students to go to the back room, and Norma, I'm going to get a picture of you and the students who here. All right, feel free, guys. We're going to continue on the meeting, so feel free to continue on.
Okay, one thing I was remiss on at the beginning of the meeting, the board will be meeting in closed session for the purpose of Superintendent Graydon's mid-year review. The board will take no action after coming out of closed session. There will be a press release available to the media immediately after the meeting. Action items. The chair will entertain a motion to appoint Jim Heff, Mari Livesey, Amy McGovern,
and Chris Mahalik to 2-year terms on the CARES Board effective July 1st, 2013.
So moved.
Second. Diane, with a second from Trustee Zemmer. Superintendent Grady.
All of these are current members and or former members of the CARES Board, so it would be, we should call these probably reappointments, but all have served in the past and have come with a variety of experiences and knowledge bases to that board.
Okay. Any questions or comments from board members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to have the district participate in the State of Michigan School Loan Revolving Fund.
So moved.
Paul?
Support.
Second from Todd.
I will turn it over to Assistant Superintendent of Finance Warner. To note, this is a loan and or repayment activity that occurs annually because of our participation in School Bond Loan Fund.
When we passed the budget in June, we actually were being a little conservative there and thought that we would be borrowing about $300,000. But with the updated taxable values and knowing where we stand at the end of the fiscal year, it looks like we'll be able to repay about $516,000 this year. If there are any large tax abatements or other changes, by the time we actually have to make that decision in March, April, we can adjust that amount. They allow us to do that. But at this point, it looks like we'll be able to repay. We're kind of right on that cusp of borrowing, paying, borrowing, paying. We had repaid about $440,000 in the 11-12 year. Then last year we borrowed $519,000, and now we're back to paying again. So it just is, we're right on that cusp. So.
Okay. Any questions or comments from board members?
Is there, if we are paying, what is our total liability that we have currently?
You know, I meant to look that up before I came in, and I didn't do it. I think it's, I better not say. I'll look it up. And
it's in the neighborhood of $100 million, just south. What this does,
I was thinking it was around 98.
98. Relative to the 7% or the 7 mils. Also, this is kind of because we're capped at 7 mils is where we have the influx of revenue versus loan payments. So, however much is captured by the 7 mils needs to cover the payments associated with our existing $98 million in debt. So, checks. If the rates go up, it captures more, and then we pay it down.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the amount that we pay is the shortfall from the 7 mils? Mike?
The amount that we're paying back is we're collecting more than we owe in our principal and interest.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from board members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion items, safety and security update. Assistant Superintendent Ellis.
Thank you. 3 focal points I'd like to update you on since I last spoke to the board about our safety and security plans. Throughout the last couple of months here, we've been working to update the Saline Area Schools Master School Safety Procedure Manual. I think you saw last year a couple of the individual building ones, and what we've worked to do is really to establish consistent terminology throughout the district. When somebody comes on the PA system, they should say the same type of announcement at the high school that they do, for example, at Pleasant Ridge. So we've worked to make the terminology more consistent. Mrs. Melcher has worked very, very diligently here over the summer to create a template where the buildings can insert building-specific information so that their building is represented the way it ought to be. In addition, we've begun walkthroughs at the buildings. As you'll recall, last year there were some walkthroughs done at the high school where we established that what we had been doing for tornadoes wasn't necessarily what we felt like we should continue to be doing. In the last 10 days or so, Chief went on a walkthrough with Michelle Chekowitz over at Woodland Meadows and came to some very similar conclusions, so those things are being updated as well. Perhaps the biggest change to the school safety manual is the inclusion of cardiac emergencies. We've always had medical emergencies in there, but we've specified language for cardiac emergencies. This language will allow us to be compliant with House Bill 4272 if it were to pass the Senate. It has passed the House. Did so back in June, and it sits in the Senate right now, but that bill would require that schools conduct annual cardiac emergency drills. We've got that as a part of our plan going into next year, whether that bill passes or not. We just felt like that was something that was important for us to do. Yes?
Do we have the AED devices?
Yes, they're all the
We've
district.
already got the
Yeah.
hardware and whatnot?
Correct. And part of the education of staff, though, is as you transition new staff, we've got over 20 new teachers this year and paraeducators and a similar number next year. We can no longer assume that everybody knows where those devices are. And for example, we had an administrative meeting at the high school today, and the overwhelming majority of administrators at the high school didn't know where the AED was at the high school. The high school administrators did, but the administrators from throughout the district did not. So that's part of that education process as well. We've continued to explore the use of a visitor and student management system, and we'll be piloting this Plasco track system at both Pleasant Ridge and the high school during the 13-14 school year. When I say we're piloting it, the use at the two buildings or the two levels can be somewhat different. I think at the elementary level, we'll find that it is used almost exclusively for visitor management. When an individual comes into the building, their ID is scanned. That scan then goes and connects to a database, and if there are flags to that individual, then the people at the office are notified immediately before the visitor badge is printed. To the extent that we put flags on for individuals, if there are custodial issues and whatnot that clerical staff may not be aware of, that system can handle that as well. At the high school, there's a student management piece that will also track truancy, attendance, those types of things. We're not committed to piloting for the entire year. If we were to find that this system really does meet our needs and we want to accelerate that process, we could certainly do that much sooner than June. But our plan is to get that installed at Pleasant Ridge. It will be operational before the start of the school year. The equipment is here now. So we've scheduled an installation date and then some time for training. Once that happens, we'll invite the board to come see a demonstration of what that looks like. The last piece is our safety team, which is Mrs. Melcher, Mrs. Schluter, Officer Small, and myself attended ALICE training out at the ISD. You may have seen some things in the press about that of late. The ISD, in conjunction with the Sheriff's Office and area law enforcement, is conducting this training throughout the county. And there's a lot of misinformation out there about ALICE. What you'll hear people say is that we're going to teach kindergartners to attack armed intruders, and that's simply not the case. Frankly, we're not going to necessarily ask teachers to do that either. But one of the drills that took place during that training is we went into a typical lockdown, and one of the officers there came into the room where we were locked down, just as we instruct our students to do. We had the lights off, we were hiding around the corner, and that individual came in and fired 3 rounds off with a pistol from point blank range. And when that happens, it very quickly shows you the folly of sitting there just waiting until something happens. And so not necessarily teaching people to attack intruders, but how to use common sense to evade, to buy time, to barricade doors, things that go beyond just simply shutting the door, turning the lights off, and hoping that you're not found. And so that training, again, our safety team went through that here a week or so ago. We'll put the rest of our administrators through that before the start of school, and then we'll develop a training schedule for the buildings that will take place throughout the year. It's the ISD's goal that all buildings in Washtenaw County will receive this training before the end of the 13-14 school year. So that's where we're at with safety and security.
Excellent.
So the middle piece there, the database,
Mm-hmm.
what databases is it tapping into?
Essentially the sex offender database. That's
Okay.
the one that
So
there's
what
some
is that?
sensitivity with schools and whatnot.
All right,
Which one is that?
The sex offender database?
What's the name of it? Is it the Otis?
No, Otis we have access to now. It's
Okay.
through the FBI. I can get you that information specifically. I don't know the exact name of it off the top of my head.
All right, I'm just thinking in terms of false positives
Yep.
and things like that could, I definitely don't want to endanger any of our children.
Correct.
What is the intended policy that if a person were identified, would they be physically accompanied wherever they needed to go in the building? Is that the desire, or?
The system will reside at a check-in point. Part of the reason we selected Pleasant Ridge is because we recognize that has the most difficult entry and egress of our elementaries. And so we selected that building for that purpose. It will likely be housed in the main office, and so the individual, when they have their ID scanned, is going to be in the main office at that point. I think we are going to go through the training once the system's installed, but from discussion with the vendor, most districts adopt a policy that will allow the individual the opportunity to sit in the office while the local police or local law enforcement are called to verify, so that you do have that system of checks and balances in place. You know, certainly our intent is not to call law enforcement and say, hey, you know, John Doe's in the building, come and get him or her, but the intent is to know who's in the building. We tend to look at the extreme cases, but some of the other benefits of a system like this, we have these, for example, grandparent days at the elementary schools. And at any given time, there will be 200 plus individuals in a building that the overwhelming majority of staff and administrators don't know who they are. And so this system allows us the capacity to have people sign up ahead of time to indicate their attendance, and we can have visitor badges printed for them ahead of time. Should an emergency occur while we have visitors in the building, the administrator will have instant access to know who is in the building in addition to his or her students. And so the extreme examples are certainly protocols that we have to develop once the training takes place, but the day-to-day value of something like this is, I think, far greater.
The scenario you point out occurs now. We have family members that are on certain lists. We have false positives that have occurred, and we've worked through those. We have students that have ended up in various points. So we've kind of been in the process over the past of working through scenarios where certain individuals within our community have designations that we need to have conversations with. So the idea that we're going to have a badge system that may alert us to that, you know, we'll kind of just kick into a normal process. And we're very thoughtful about how we handle that from a privacy standpoint, but also from a safety standpoint.
Kurt, walk me through the status of concealed weapons and teachers and administrators. What's the current status of the whole thing?
It kind of reached a zenith shortly after the Sandy Hook elementary situation. It largely is a dead issue at this point, as I understand it. I don't think there's any active legislation that's being pursued at this particular point. It certainly has been a hot topic of discussion, and we've had very casual conversation about that here. We do have an administrator in the building or in the district who has a concealed weapons permit, and you know, should that type of legislation pass, that individual would be qualified to carry a weapon right now. Obviously, they do not under the current situation, but I am not aware of any pending legislation right now that would
Not
allow.
in Michigan. I believe Ohio has continued to look at various things.
Right. That's what, okay. So in Michigan, if a teacher, administrator, or employee has concealed weapons permit, they're not allowed to bring it on school property. Correct. Not in their vehicle, not on property.
There are, and I don't want to misquote the law. My understanding, again, I don't want to misquote the law. My understanding was that it could be in the vehicle, provided it was locked in a secure lock box and concealed in the vehicle. It cannot be out in the open. But that would be something, if that was a question that we needed an answer to, I could certainly get that for you.
Did he answer that right?
Oh, yeah.
She isn't.
Well, I wasn't even going to say who our individual was.
They have some information about this topic.
A parent can bring a handgun concealed in a vehicle, but not into the vehicle, not into the school building. It can remain locked.
Okay.
The school administrator or employee may not bring a weapon to a weapons-free zone.
Okay.
Even locked in the vehicle.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments from board members?
We just, when Pat said what's the policy, do we need to have policy updates for new software? The procedures sound similar to what we have now.
You know, I think following training, we may need to consider what the implications were of that.
My suggestion would be to consider policy, but let's see how the pilot goes, because we may decide that this is not for us.
Not to do it.
And then you'd have, you know, a fair amount of work done.
What policy are you referring to, Paul?
Well,
We have some visitor policies.
Visitor
They're
policies.
very broad in nature, just say
yeah,
we, you know, the buildings,
Okay.
you know, have
Got it.
volunteer policies.
I mean, ultimately, we should
Yep.
include software and other things and checking databases in that policy, so we're transparent.
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks to everybody for putting in the time, because I think it's very good that we're being proactive and not just sticking with the status quo and doing this things like we always have done them. Because I know there's been many changes in the last few years, so kudos to everybody.
I would echo that, and I'm sure the parental community feels that way as well. You know, it's a sign of the times, the way the world is, and we have to prepare for those situations that we hope never occur. But thanks for everybody who's been involved in the process. It's greatly appreciated. Survey results.
All right.
Superintendent Grady.
We have a, no joke, a 58-slide presentation. With that being said, the intention for tonight is to provide you a quick overview to take home the packet of information. There's a lot of really good and rich information in this report, and we're continuing to kind of work through. We disaggregated some things for the building level and provided that to the building administrator. We've had conversations about some of the open-ended responses. But again, this is that climate survey that really will provide with us a little bit of a baseline data as we move forward. And so right now, in conversations with President Holden, we've talked about a more in-depth discussion on maybe some specific areas in September at the September workshop as we continue to work through this kind of ongoing conversation. So as a quick reminder, the purpose, we conducted the site-level climate survey in April of last year, asking staff, parents, and students at the 6th through 12th grade level about our school district, and really focused on these 8 areas in terms of where we wanted to get some more information and gather feedback from them collectively as well as somewhat individually. As you know, this is the first year we've administered this survey, and again, it's our intention, and I'll touch on that we'll do it again. It was done right after we got back from spring break. It was launched in spring break. Our intention would be to follow that same timeline. Although that's a busy time of year, it's an opportunity to really get a good sense of how that year has gone. They were invited to participate by way of email notification and how they could access the school, the survey. We also provided paper and pencil for those who want. Our response rates kind of ran the gamut. We had 9% for students and 35% for staff and parents, and I'll touch on that a little bit more as we go through. Just at the highest level, if you look at it, the positive responses range from for staff, 71% had a positive affinity for school operations. Meaning how did the school operate? And 90% felt we were doing good or very good in terms of academic preparation of our students. Parents ranged from 70% were positive, and again, good to very good in terms of safety and behavior. And I'll touch on the behavior because there was some information about behavior that I want to hit on. And then up to 83% for parent engagement in school operations. Students were 64%. It was kind of the low again for positive affinity for student support, and 82% for school operations. So just in a vacuum, we've talked. It doesn't really say a whole lot. We've talked to the K-12 Insight folks. These are very strong numbers as they look at this survey across the country. But again, we're looking at trend information, so we're going to need to gather them, and then again, diving in a little bit deeper to get them more. Real quickly, this is the number of respondents. If you look at this, the 35% actually is fairly strong. We'd like to see that increase, particularly for staff. The 9% for students, essentially, from what we've been told, that's about the max you're going to get unless you literally have classes, go to the lab, and participate in the survey during class time. And we've talked about the benefits of that and or the concern of that in terms of lost instructional time. So we'll continue to work through that. If you look at it, if you say, please tell us the rating will you give the quality of your school using the excellent, fair, good. If you look, the vast majority, again, in that 90th percentile across each group, really pushed it, to the good and very good, or pardon me, excellent and good. In general, our parents and our staff and our students have a real positive feeling about the quality of the school district. And so, again, talking with the K-12 Insight folks, they felt this was very high. If you kind of jump into that and look at these other areas, and again, I don't want to get too far down the line of diving into, okay, well, what's embedded in school operations? What about district services? As we look at this, you can see some of the different areas in terms of perceptions overall about our school district. Strong being academic preparation seems to be one that is very high. School operations, interestingly enough, is from a staff perspective, kind of in the mid-range, and from a community perspective when it comes to the parents and the students is a little bit higher, a little bit stronger relative to the other areas. Looking specifically at staff, again, you can see that really, 95% really feel like this is a quality school district. If you dive in there, high standards set for students, again, you can see that these numbers continue to be strong. Curriculum assessments are supported to student learning was one area that we look at, trying to really understand what do people think about in terms of our assessment structure. We had conversations today about the number of assessments we give. Frankly, we give a lot of tests as a school district. Frankly, as an industry, we've kind of moved to this testing model, and we're interested in exploring what can we do to help mitigate that issue moving forward. This is another area, look, the conversation about what do students, are they learning something that's going to be important for them for the next grade or after graduation? Again, there's a strong affinity there, and that follows through in the other groups as well. Staff members working together, staff members giving feedback related to student work, and then our students actively engaged in learning at the school. Again, those are all continue to be strong and are indicative of a high-performing school district that really we are. If you look here, you can see kind of one of the areas we want to dive a little bit further into is, with the high-performing school district, a lot of times there's a lot of stress associated with the academic environment. There's a lot of stress associated with some of the assessments we're giving. We tried to get some questions to determine what are our staff and student perceptions about the level of support provided to them. And so one area that that has kind of come out of this is college and career planning is an area where it feels like perhaps we want to make sure we're investigating what it is we're providing now and what are some opportunities to provide more in that area. I know what my principal expects of me as a staff member. That was one kind of looking at our leadership standpoint, really providing feedback to our administrators in terms of the types of jobs we're doing. And again, what is the overall assessment? These are composite across the district, and each building principal has been given their individual building information to look at it and to learn from. And again, it's not that this is the answer, this is some type of referendum, but it's a conversation starter, particularly as the year gets going about how things are going. You can see here, in terms of leadership, do they have time to talk and do they talk? And the answer there, again, from the staff is largely absolutely. Parent engagement, I don't want to get too far. Safety and behavior. When I first saw some of our safety behavior numbers, I was concerned relative to safety. One issue that has come up, and it runs really through the staff, the parents, and the students, is really what are we doing related to drug and alcohol use in our community. And so it's an area that, again, will foster some conversations for us as we move forward. Again, there's still, related to most communities fairly strong, but it's, again, an area for us to continue to do a better job at. I'm going to buzz through here real quick and get to, as you see just from a participation, about 73% of the respondents were in the teacher realm. The paraeducators were around 10, and support staff, which is called classified staff, they're made up another 13, and then some of the administration. If you jump in and look at parents, so these are the parents' respondents to very similar type questions. And you look, again, we're at the 90% of the parents who fill out this survey felt like Saline Area Schools is a quality school district. And so, again, that is consistent with some of the things that we've seen. Child being prepared for the next grade, again, what's in the next level, again, continues to be high. Feedback on homework and feedback on tests and quizzes, really from a parent perspective, are areas we can continue to work through, and something we want to make sure continues to be an area of focus for us. And if you go down to this one here, again, get the support they need relative to academic and career planning. Again, still a fairly positive number, a fairly strong number, but again, as it relates to the other areas, it's an area that may point to some focus for it, and certainly just simply warrants more consideration. You look at a scenario and the parents, breakdown went across various grade levels, but almost 80% continue to say their students are excited to go to school. I wouldn't ask them in August that question, but in general, they continue to be.
As relates to support for students, what's our ratio counselor to student today versus 10 years ago?
I wouldn't want to speak. I don't know exactly as far as just a straight per pupil to counselor ratio.
It's like doubled, I think, what it was 10 years ago.
As far as it's
double.
But
we asked that question, and we're in the national norm, right? That we asked that at budget.
the other issue we don't have data to show what was the perception on this question 10 years ago.
Right.
So,
Right. Just in terms of relative pattern of that score, which I looked ahead.
right.
It jumps out all over the place.
Yeah, it does. Well, I think if you look at the pattern, again, this is where I think we're really on the cusp of creating the conversation around some of these issues. That issue, and then honestly the drug and alcohol issue, which, not that they tandem, but those are kind of two areas that, to me, were different. Than the academic numbers were strong throughout. And so I think you're right to say that's an area that we need to probably ask some more questions and do some more research as we move forward.
Do counselors include social workers, or are we just talking about academic counselors?
Well, from the standpoint, the survey didn't ask, and so I don't want to presume too much from that. When you talk about counselors, we have both counselors and social workers. I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know from a layperson's side that there's much of a determination from there as to what the difference would or wouldn't be. For example, several years ago we had elementary counselors. We now have elementary social workers. They're different. Sometimes they're providing similar services. Sometimes they're providing dissimilar services. So, yeah. In some of these, and you kind of touched on it. Again, it gets to where there's a. It gets to where it may prompt more questions than it provides answers at this point. But again, that's where I think the value of the conversation is important. Again, strong parent engagement numbers. 92% of the parents feel welcome at their school. Kept informed about things is an area that it's interesting because we talk about later on in the question. You'll see about how they become informed. But again, they look at different aspects, and one of the things we continue to work is how can we best communicate with the community about what's going on in our schools and what's coming up. Again, strong numbers when it comes to teachers talking about student learning. Positive correlation between the parents feeling that their child is safe at school. If you look down here again, the drug and alcohol is not a problem at this school. You start to see that 50-50 mark hit for one of the only times. And again, it goes back to some of the emergency procedures and security issues that we need to make sure we're continuing to work on and raise awareness about. Another area, healthy food. It's one of the things that we've talked about a couple of times here, but if you look at a couple of different, both the parents and the staff, parents and student response, looked at healthy food served in the cafeteria. Number probably wasn't as high as we'd like to see it, and we can talk about what that looks like. Interestingly enough, they have enough time to eat, but we don't like potentially what they eat. Then we got some more information about kind of their lunches fare. Cleanliness came up strong in the parent side and on the student side, and kind of helped drive the the school operations number. Jumping to district initiatives, if you look here where parents are awareness of our district initiatives, BYOD is a program we've had now for a little while. That's in the 50th percentile, but it's interesting. I think integrating technology into instruction can improve student learning. More than 9 out of 10 parents felt that was a true statement. And then it talks about internet resources in terms of what types of internet resources they use. And then, again, worrying about safeguards and BYOD and other things. Again, we really wanted to get a sense from a parent perspective, how do they feel about devices, access to devices, security, safety? Are they aware of our use policy as we know them? Again, 75% or 74% indicated their children regularly use the internet and technology to complete their homework. It's kind of asked a little bit about kind of events, how often they attended each of the following events. Sadly, school board meetings were not particularly well attended. Yeah. That being said, our numbers were pretty strong in the open house celebrations. And if you remember, we asked some of these questions because we were trying to get some data about filming of our school board meetings. So I'm interested in school board meetings. We got that number up to around 6 out of 10 indicated, and only 5, a little over, just under 5 out of 10 felt that they were kept informed of these activities. So an opportunity to see if our filming of this and availability online can help in this area. And then the best way what are the best ways for a school to communicate to your child? I would have predicted a little bit of a different breakdown here, but essentially almost 100% of the people that email was really the best way. So we continue to communicate a lot via email. I worry about email fatigue a little bit, and then we have school messenger as being the next way. But backpack mail is now dropped a little bit. We jump to the students, and again, they over 80% thought excellent or good when it comes to the quality of their school. And again, I want to caution, these are 6th through 12th grade students that filled out. Interestingly, the relevance piece, we talk a lot about rigor and relevance being important to schools. When you talk about relevance, that number is a little bit low, where my teachers show me how our lessons relate to life outside of school. And again, we can have conversations internally about what does that mean and what are some ways that we can create relevance and awareness of relevance. And then, again, an adult at a school tells me what I need to do to be promoted or to graduate. Again, kind of that advisor role kind of comes out again. Looking here again, I'm going to go too far in, but the opportunity to who they talk to, what type of support systems are in place for them, and again, their feelings of whether or not they're known well. 70% of students feel like an adult at the school that knows them well, and there's a lot of research around the connectivity to an adult at the school and how important that can be. Again, we look here at the counseling piece in terms of getting into college. The one thing we don't know with this, and I tried to get some more feedback, is how many of the students that filled this out were at the middle school level, who clearly we haven't had a lot of conversations with, and that potentially could be skewing these numbers a little bit, so we're continuing to try and disaggregate that. Again, the school counselor takes time to provide social and emotional support is a stronger number, and I think that's a positive thing. Talks a little bit about parents asking and parent involvement as it relates from a student perspective. Parents ask about my day at school. 9 out of 10 students said their parents asked them about their day, so it was kind of interesting information for us to have. And then if you discipline, fairly enforced, feeling safe at school, again, some strong numbers, but then it gets to students do not use drugs or alcohol in school. Again, a relatively low number, so again, it points to an area that we need to ask some more questions in. Cleanliness ranked high. I have access to computers and the internet at home to do my schoolwork. One comment that comes out a fair amount is okay, what type of students do students have access to internet at home? Of the 9% that fill it out, 95% of them have access. So I don't know whether or not the type of student who's interested in getting online and filling out this survey inherently has better internet access. Again, we need to dive a little bit deeper, but it does point to some degree of resources within our community as it relates to technology. Then again, some awareness, integrating technology into instruction can improve my learning. Interestingly, that mirrors the parent number in that area. So again, they continue to, it does indicate that using technology regularly to complete their schoolwork just is almost a way of life now. And again, kind of different things about, we want to know a little bit of what some of the issues might be. Does it stay connected to the internet? Do they find easy and clearly charging is an issue? Are they able to keep their device charged if they're bringing it from home? And it actually gets into some of the other questions. You can see what we want to know, what subject areas used internet resources more or less, and English and social studies did more than math and science at this point. Very early, and not quite the sample size from a student perspective that I'd like to see. But again, it's really an opportunity for us to continue a conversation and to Trustee Zimmer's point, look at this information and ask deeper questions about the services we provide to our students and to our families. So, more to come on this, but questions?
Just a general observation is that they flip through it and look at over the last 10, 12 years what we've done in terms of our staffing ratios and technology changes and funding levels for different things. There's no surprises here.
We've driven our money into the classroom and cut outside the classroom.
And as you and I have talked, looking at the profile of the younger children in the district going forward, I would encourage us to pay attention to that, because we're going to see that these spots they're seeing as weaknesses will become more pronounced as time goes forward. So we need to make sure that we pay attention to that, because it's going to make it a more daunting,
more challenging.
task. The weaknesses identified in the survey, we know that they're there. and our school population is changing, and so there's some big stuff that we need to pay attention to.
That gives us a great opportunity for discussion and honing in on those finer points.
Mm-hmm.
Did they bump our numbers up against the national norms, or?
They you know, yes and no. Anecdote, they have not showed us their benchmarking. They're a little bit leery about that right now, because one of the things we've asked for that very thing. We want to how do we compare it to the national norm? How do we compare to this type of school? And so actually the gentleman who was in the other day, and we were talking a little bit further about this. We really want to look at, if we were a suburban rural district with a median, you know, what do we look like compared to, what does our climate survey look like compared to districts like Saline across the country? They have not provided that for us yet. Frankly, they're trying to figure out exactly to make sure they're matrix. The company is very serious about making sure their data is essentially will stand the scientific test. And I think from our standpoint, that's great. I'm looking, frankly, I'm asking a question. Give me the quick answer. They want to make sure if they provide an answer when it comes to benchmarking, that it's, you know, fundamentally supported and legitimate. So.
Yeah, I think sometimes we have to be maybe a little bit careful that even though this is good data, when you only have 9% of students
right.
and 35% of staff and 35% of parents, you know, there's still a vast majority out there that haven't given their input. So we do have to have a little cautionary note on that. I would recommend that that board members digest this report, and if there are specific areas that we want further discussion on, just email that in to me. I'll collect it all, give it to Scott, and at our work session in September, we'll address those issues. And that'll give Scott some time to prepare as well. So sometime over the next week or so, if you can just provide me that input, that way you can kind of guide our agenda for the work session in September. If everybody is agreeable with that? Okay, good. Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to authorize items A through E as part of the consent agenda. So moved. G. Second. And Dave Zimmer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Items scheduled for the next agenda. Do we have anything at this point?
No.
Okay. This is the second opportunity for public comment. If there is a member of the audience who would like to address the board for up to 3 minutes, they may do so at this time. Okay. The next meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Tuesday, September 10th, 2013 at 6:30 here at Liberty. And the chair will now entertain a motion to enter closed session with the board with the intent to reopen the session at, we'll say, 8:15 for the purpose of the superintendent evaluation. Diane and Todd. And this requires a roll call vote. Trustee Freese?
Aye.
Trustee Zimmer?
Aye.
Vice President Heft?
Yes.
President Holden? Aye. Secretary Carter?
Yes, sirree, Bob.
And Trustee Heineck?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And that, now let me see. We have to have a motion to adjourn. Is that correct? No? Okay, we'll enter into closed session. So we'll take a quick 5 minutes.